Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Senior Vice President of DevOps, Pat Casey.
Wow. I wasn't quite sure what to expect the morning after the big show, or rather the party, but welcome, everybody. This is great. This is our third CreatorCon, and we did some stats this morning. We're, I think, about 4,500 people at this one, and to put it in comparison, we were just about 2,000 last time. So one side effect of that is about half the folks here have never been to CreatorCon before. So rather than kind of leave you figuring out what this is all about, I thought I should spend a little time explaining, what's the show all about. And I'll start by saying that this is something which is sort of, near and dear to my heart, because I am a software developer. This is what I have done really throughout my career. And one thing I've noticed, though, is that the things I did day in day, when I kind of go back in time, they changed. I actually started out writing software on these things, mainframes. I actually had a 3270 on my desk, and if you've worked on one of these, they're actually remarkably terrible. To actually put stuff on a tape, you had to write a little script, like Rex script. They were miserable. They also, fortunately, got superseded. Like, we stopped doing this, unless you're in airline ticketing, in which case they all still run on mainframes. But we actually switched to these. Remember mini computers? The format wars, HPUX or HPUX, as we affectionately called it. These were better, I thought. I didn't actually need a specialized terminal. But the big change I found was, people started getting these on their desktops. You started getting desktops. And then the idea was we were all going to write client-server applications. Remember those? Push all the processing power to these fat desktops and have these very thin servers. It sort of worked for a while. It seemed to be okay. And at least for me, the big epical change that I noticed, though, it happened here. And this is like a trivia test. Does anybody recognize this date? Oh, I double-clicked my slide. I gave it away. Yeah, this is the Netscape launch. This is the first stock I ever personally tried to buy, by the way. I had a broker who called me back and said, no, you can't buy that stock. Everybody else bought it. It's unbuyable. But this really was a huge change, because really before this, we hadn't agreed on the delivery format for application content. Maybe it was fat client, maybe it was thin client. Everyone had their own fat client. But when Netscape arrived, when the internet arrived, we had decided, we were going to deliver apps over the internet. And we switched a little. It was all browser-based. Now these days it's a little more phone-centric, but the internet sort of won the format war. The thing that was the same throughout all of these generations, though, the thing that stayed the same, was the people were still building software. And that fundamentally is what this show is all about. It's about people who build software for a living. It's about me, it's about you, it's about the creators of this world. And I need to click my slide again. Let's see if that works. There we go. It doesn't matter what the job title is, because it's changed. I was a programmer at one point. Some of you are probably programmers. I've been a software engineer, been a software developer, I've been an architect, I've been a creator. I'm sure there's been similar job titles you all have had. The function is what matters. If you write software for a living, this show is for you. And we are trying to show you how to be even more productive, to show you some of the cool new stuff on top of this platform to help you do your jobs even better and more excitedly. We're also hoping along the way to kind of excite you a little bit. This stuff should be kind of fun. And it also should kind of satisfy the creative urge, for lack of a better point. My personal experience writing software is that, yeah, I get paid to do this, so there's certainly an economic element to it. But I could probably get paid to do lots of different things. That really gets me satisfied is producing something concrete and giving it to other people and having them say, wow, that's great. That made my life better, more meaningful. And if we can show you ways to achieve that in your own lives, I will feel like this show was a raging success. All of that said, I talked about some really big, long-term trends in the industry. Talk a little bit more about some kind of this year sort of trends we've been observing. And one of them is evergreen, but I do think it's true and it's valid. And that is that timelines for delivery, they've been shrinking. When I entered the industry, at least, it was not unusual to measure timelines in years. I had a project that I had a 2-year delivery timeline on once. These days, you're lucky if you get 2 months. You're really lucky if you get 2 weeks sometimes. So the time spans have been coming in because our customers expect us to deliver even faster. And this has a ripple effect on the tools and the techniques you can use. If you've got less time, you can't use a lot of approaches. You've got to iterate. You've got to get things out there quickly. This is a problem we've been working on. Second one is a little more abstract, but it's relevant. Most of the apps that I think all of us in this room have written through our career were about people tracking. You were trying to keep track of the work that human beings did. Who approved the purchase order when? When did the invoice get received? It was usually documenting human activity. And it's good. And that's pretty much the state of the art. But I hate to use a buzzword, but this whole IoT thing, everyone told me it was going to be my refrigerator is going to order eggs for me. It doesn't do that. But what it does do is it generates this huge amount of data. And more often, we're being asked to generate applications that are based on machine-generated data sets. We are tracking work machines have done, and that, in turn, drives really different application development requirements. Because believe me, machines can generate a lot more data than people. They are really good at it. The final piece of kind of today's puzzle, and we struggled to find like a really pithy, kind of marketing version of this. Rising expectations is kind of vague. What are we talking about? Remember how I mentioned that most apps are kind of people tracking apps? People tracking apps inherently, they track. Who did what when. These days, we're in a lot of cases being asked to have the applications take part in the business processes they are tracking. It's no longer enough to know when Mary approved the purchase order. Now you want the system to approve the purchase order if Mary would have done so. You're being asked to make smarter applications that actually make business decisions as part of the process. And that, in turn, requires different approaches, different technologies. And to use another buzzword, it does require a little bit of AI in your applications. And this is coming. I think a lot of you have seen the requests come in, and you've probably assumed, frankly, like I did about 6 months ago, that technology stack really wasn't quite there yet to solve this. But I think it actually is, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. We'll step back, though, and I'll point out that we started out here with these 3 problem statements when we laid out the development this year, and we decided we really ought to solve these. Because if we don't solve any problems, we're not really getting what we wanted out of this whole thing. And the solution for there's not enough time, it's pretty obvious. We should just help people build stuff faster. And if you've studied ServiceNow for a long time, this was really the idea we had in our heads when we founded the company. We were back in the basement of our VC, and there's one little window up on the top. The idea we had is we wanted to let ordinary people build business applications quickly. And we really did a great job, I think. I hate to always say good things about myself, but I thought it was a great implementation for 2005. What's happened, though, is we can't rest on our laurels, because what you need to do in 2017 is more than just develop. You need to develop your app, but you also need to test it. You need to deploy it. You need to maintain it. All of these are necessary to really say you've got a modern application. So we've been investing in all 4 of these from a developer standpoint. And we're actually going to bring up Jonathan and Jerry in a few minutes to show you what we've done here. So hold on that point. I wanted to loop back a little to the data problem, though. And we were struggling for a good infographic for this. And it turned out that I like watching, Discovery Channel. I had just watched a big talk about the Apollo moon landings. If you studied the Apollo moon landings, there actually were 2 ships involved. There was the big command module and the little itty-bitty one. I should hold my hands that way so I don't block the camera. the little itty-bitty one that came off and docked on the moon, that little one had a computer on it to calculate how to land on the moon. It was the height of 1969 technology, and it had 2K of memory. In fact, that was so little memory that they had 2 programs on it, one to dock and undock, and one to land. They had to reprogram the computer by hand after undocking to load the landing computer on it. So 1969, 2K was the best American technology money could buy. Put another data point there, 1982, the US Census. Entire data set, 182 megabytes. I know because I had an intern download it. The poor guy. Are you in? Well, never mind. Somewhere that there's an intern who spent a lot of time downloading lots of little pieces of census data and gluing them together for me. But time marches on. 2002, remember the Human Genome Project? It was going to map the human genome. It was going to cure cancer. The oceans would recede. Oceans didn't recede. We still have cancer. We do have a 53 gigabyte data set, though. It fits on my phone. Actually, would not have fit on my last phone, but it fits fine on this one. You see the expansion here a little bit. While we're talking about phones, my phone has a spell checker. I suspect yours does as well. The spell checker itself is built off about a 4 terabyte database of misspellings, which get munged together to produce the spell checker if it actually makes it on your phone. It's not 4 terabytes on your phone, but the backing data set is. If you're seeing a pattern here, it's pretty obvious. The amount of data that today's apps are building, it's just going through the roof. And more often than not, it's not just the problem of more data, it's the problem of specific kinds of data. It's machine-generated data, which more often than not is something called a time series. It's a metric over time. How many eggs are there in my refrigerator right now? How many eggs were there an hour ago, 2 hours ago? It's not going to change. Nobody's awake in my household right now. But we actually solved this. We wrote a new piece of technology, a new addition to the ServiceNow platform. It's a product called MetricBase. And it's designed to let you put the huge IoT data streams of today into the ServiceNow platform. And equally importantly, it associates them all with the CMDB. It's not some separate entity that floats around in space. It's in the CMDB. Anything you have in the CMDB, you can associate time series data with. You can query it through the CMDB. You can work with it through the CMDB. We're going to actually show you this live in just a few minutes. But this is super exciting because it means you can actually write different kinds of apps on top of the platform. You can say yes a lot more often. Having said all this, though, I want to talk about what I have typically thought of as the flying car of our industry. And I say flying car because people have been promising me a flying car since I was a kid. I mean, the Jetsons had a flying car, Blade Runner had a flying car, Star Wars had a flying car. I guess it was a hover car in the first one, and it flew in the second trilogy, right? But point is, I don't have a flying car. And I had mentally put AI into the same bucket. Every year has been the year of AI since about 2000, and it hasn't arrived yet. HAL isn't here, Skynet's not here. If you're an E&M Banks fan, there's no culture mines floating around. Almost every AI is homicidal. Have you noticed that? It's just, I guess the Ian Banks ones were kind of nice. But the point is, it didn't seem like it was really real. But I've actually had to revise my opinion a little bit. I don't think it's the flying car. I think it's more of an electric car. It's just starting to arrive on the roads. It's just starting to kind of peek its nose under the tent. We are starting to see AI work its way into enterprise applications. There are problems it solves really quite well. And what we've set out was to use that to solve the problem I started with. If people want smarter apps, the way you give it to them is you build smarter apps. You can add machine learning into the system. So we added a platform capability to allow you to do machine learning on platform data sets. You can learn from the historical data you already have in your ServiceNow instances. You can use it to train a machine, and then it can predict future outcomes for you. That's the fundamental function that it serves. And it's available right in the platform. It's not some extra bolt-on that we did somewhere else where you've got to pay a lot of consultants a lot of money to move your data back and forth. In practice, though, most of the time, you're probably not going to use it for exotic machine learning problems, although I love to see that because I like seeing people do cool stuff. Most of the use cases we expect you to have are around work distribution and work management. It's around routing tasks, assigning things, categorizing things, choosing whether or not to approve things, setting the priorities on things. It's allowing machines to make decisions that previously required human beings. And that frees up people to work on, frankly, more important stuff. And the anecdote I have here is one of the side effects of getting promoted a few times is I now have to approve things. I don't think I've ever rejected an approval. It's just boilerplate work, but I have to do it because the theory is at some point someone will ask for a flying car and I'll approve it and something terrible will happen. So I've got to look at all of them, and I do. But a machine could look at them much better than I could in that case. All right. Having said all that, you heard me talk for a little bit about how I'm seeing the industry. I thought it might be helpful at this point to bring up some customers to talk about what their experience has been like on top of the ServiceNow platform and where they're seeing the industry go as well, and then we'll shift into some demo. But for right now, I want to invite up Linka Lander, who's the Vice Chancellor of Services at Lone Star College. So Link, can you please come on up?
How you doing?
Welcome. Great.
Good crowd.
It is a good crowd. So Link, you're a little bit of an unusual audience or participant for CreatorCon. You're actually a Vice Chancellor, and that's sort of like a CIO, is that right?
That's the job. But the reality is, you showed a 3270. I actually started on punch cards.
Oh. You get some.
Yeah, there's a few other punch cards out there, right? So, you know, the reality is this: it doesn't matter where you're at. It's the critical part of what we do is about delivering that experience. And the expectation nowadays is not the old, stagnant, slow delivery of applications. So just like that mainframe and churning the information around, it's really about that speed to deliver and having that agility in the organization to address a business problem and bring value back to the organization.
And has the ServiceNow product line helped you do that? Is that part of your speed of delivery?
First off, it was the ultimate for us in the IT service management space. It was just phenomenal. It helped us to organize our work, become more efficient. But what happened is that our customers saw how this worked, and then they started seeing, well, what can you do for us? And so right now, we really have had a strong focus on enterprise service management and then finding those unique situations. So probably the best example was the littlest, simplest app you would ever think of. I think it took them 2 to 3 days to go through the whole process. But we had faculty recruiters going out to colleges, recruiting new faculty, using a spreadsheet. That was how they would get the data. And I'm sitting in a meeting listening to this, and I'm like, there's a simpler way to do things in life. Now they go out with an iPad and a ServiceNow app that allows new potential faculty to go in, enter their information in, build a recruiting pool, and then those same, every time we have a job announcement, those people are notified that, hey, we have an opening in mathematics. If you're interested, come on in. So simplifying a process, making it, well, more human.
And how long did that take your team to write? That sounds like a pretty useful app.
It was, I do believe, 2 days through the test side and then delivery. I think the hardest part was trying to figure out how to get them used to using iPads for it.
And I'm going to guess here, but were they surprised, right? They've been using a spreadsheet for a long time. What was their experience like switching to a real app, for lack of a better word?
I think the best way to put it was the data. Now they have this data that they're saying, yeah, we went out to this trip and we recruited and we brought back all these here, and now they're looking at that same data and seeing how many of them actually applied and how many we've actually hired in that process. So they're showing value to their work. It's not just collecting information. Now they're using that data to move things forward, which makes a big difference.
And I got to ask, you know, as a leader, as a CIO, what's this meant to you? You've been able to build apps inside the organization, you know, quickly. Has that made it easier to work with your peers? Has it made it harder? Made you a more popular guy?
More popular guy. I don't know about that. But the reality is, what it does for us in the organization, it allows us to address business problems, so we're able to do it quickly. And by getting to that point, now they come to us and say, well, here's my problem. What's the solution? We're not dragged into the situation where they look at us and say, I want this. And now I can evaluate what platform does it go on, what's the speed to deliver. You know, you're right. There's no such thing as a 6-month. I presentation earlier said I don't have any projects over a year, and those are major infrastructure stuff that nobody sees. So it really is about that speed. They're coming to me now and they're saying, here's the problem. You know, what's the best solution we can deliver for them? It's just up to us to decide which platform.
All right. And do you have a room full of largely developers here? It's a room full of engineers. You know, as a business leader, what advice do you think you would give to this room of folks to be more effective engineers?
The most important part. Understand your business and your business challenges and what their problems are. In reality, even though you're developing, as you're developing through that process, if you can understand what the business side of it is, it helps you to build a better app. It helps you build it faster. It also helps you to be recognized in the organization as a value add at that point. So it is really critical to have a good, solid, comprehensive knowledge of the business side.
All right. Link, thank you very much.
Appreciate
very much
it.
Appreciate
Enjoyed
having
it.
you out here.
Hey, have a great event.
All right. We had another customer actually wanted to fly out here, but it turns out they were not available to be on stage, but they did consent to cut a video for us. So I'd actually like to go ahead and step off stage for a minute and show you a video about Desjardins Financial.
Desjardins is the largest cooperative financial group in Canada with over 45,000 employees. We selected ServiceNow initially to solve our consolidation needs and provide our IT department with a unique, rapid application development platform.
The 3 key success factors are pre-built components that can be customized and reused. Also, we have the fact that it runs in the cloud, which keeps costs down, and the easy integration within our environment.
In just the past 2 years, we've built and delivered more than 65 applications that our employees use across every line of business.
The average time to build an application has been at least 5 times faster than our internal Java-based development. The Bravo app was built to support our employee incentive program. We had to integrate role-based access and employee classifications so groups and departments could access and view team recognitions. Because of the Now platform flexibility, we were able to integrate frameworks such as AngularJS, Bootstrap to meet expectations. Ramp-up time for the new developers on the Now platform is extremely fast. We are able to onboard in under 10 days. Ça nous donne beaucoup plus de temps pour se concentrer sur l'innovation.
Desjardins is not only automating more of our business processes with apps our users love, we're doing it at light speed.
Those guys are great. They're actually at the show as well. They just didn't want to be on stage. It's a little stressful sometimes. So if you did get a chance to see them, please feel free to ask them some questions. They're also a pretty interesting customer because they collect data on almost everything they do. So they actually have data on things like developer productivity, which they're happy to share. All that said, though, I do want to shift gears a little bit. We kind of gave you a business perspective on the ServiceNow platform, but when you get down to it, this isn't really a business show. It's about kind of working engineers. So I actually wanted to bring up somebody whose hands are on the keyboard every day, a man named Hunter Wolf. Hunter is actually a developer on the ServiceNow platform at C.H. Robinson. So Hunter, can you kind of come on up?
How's it going?
Good.
Good to see you.
So you must be a developer. You have a T-shirt.
I do. One of the great CreatorCon T-shirts.
All right. I saw him backstage, and he changed shirts. He came in with a very nice button-down shirt and decided it was not the right look. So, good choice. You started your career developing on ServiceNow, though. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. I started at C.H. Robinson, actually on the service desk. Grand visions of being a network engineer.
But you started, answering support calls.
Yep, absolutely. Started answering support calls, taking our customers' issues, trying to figure all that stuff out. We brought ServiceNow in a little bit after I started. I was super impressed with what its capabilities were, and I started getting really interested in it. The other guy couldn't support all the work that we had coming in, so I joined the team to kind of try it out, see what was going on. Worked out.
And that was about 7 years ago? Is that right?
Yep, 7 years. A lot of change in that time. A lot of great stuff's coming around. So.
And you kind of heard me talk about the 3 challenges that I was seeing this year. One of them was definitely, speed of development. Are you seeing that as well, or am I off in some different universe?
No, absolutely not. I think, as even we are able to deliver products to our customers at the speed we're delivering, they're expecting even faster turnaround times.
And can you talk about any particular project or app that you've done recently that's kind of interesting? Hopefully one that was fast?
Yeah. No, someone super slow. No, just kidding. One of the great ones that we're working on actually right now at C.H. Robinson is a application access project. It's a huge project that brings together multiple security models, trying to streamline that process, make access automated, and actually make it easier for auditors.
And how long did that take you?
Right now, we're at about a month and a half, and our plan is to deploy it in June.
Oh, wow. And I think we mentioned backstage that this had been an ongoing project at C.H. Robinson, that it lasted a little longer than that?
Yep. It's a project we've tried to do several times, and I don't think we would be able to do it without using ServiceNow, just bringing it all together.
Is that how does that make you feel to kind of get that done, something that other people had potentially struggled with?
Nice feather in the hat. We get to go back and kind of show off to the rest of IT and talk to them and show them the power.
All right. And I also mentioned a couple of other trends I was seeing out in the industry. I think I mentioned, the big data push and the need for more intelligent apps. Are you seeing that as well, or is that not something that's percolating?
No, I think absolutely it's something that we're seeing. Even with something like application access, I could see that. We're trying to bring all of this access down and bring it down and say, hey, you need this access. You shouldn't have to fill that out. Machine intelligence can really help us identify what access people need.
All right. And I gave Link this opportunity. I think I'll do the same to you. You have a bit of a different perspective. You write code for a living. You do it on ServiceNow. Do you have any advice or guidance you give anyone in the audience, some suggestions, what they could do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're all here, which to me says that you have a passion around this project or this product, right? And I'd say bring that passion to the work that you do. Show that. I think people get excited when you have that, and bringing that into your work really helps.
All right, Hunter. Well, I can definitely see your passion, so thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you. You have a great rest of the conference.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. You heard me talk. You heard some customers talk. You saw a pretty well-produced video. The marketing team's getting quite good at that. I think it's time we actually talked about some product. So I'm going to bring up, in a few minutes, Jerry Jones and Jonathan Sparks, and Jonathan does have his red shoes, and they're going to talk about an app that they built actually a while ago. I tasked them to build a real app. We actually built this to manage the provisioning of lab instances inside of ServiceNow. Whether you realize it or not, all those labs you take, we provision a lot of instances for them, and we have an app that manages it. And I actually asked Jonathan and Jerry to build that app. So they're going to come up and talk to you about, I think it's actually got a bug in it that they may be working on. So with that said, let me bring up Jerry Jones and Jonathan Sparks to show you how to build some apps quickly or fast. Need this?
Okay, so thank you, Pat. I'm Jonathan. This is Jerry.
Morning.
And we get to talk to you about some new developer tools. So we are absolutely committed at ServiceNow to building a platform for you developers that you will love. In many cases, what this has meant is that we have had to translate developer tools that have traditionally only been available on your laptop or on your desktop into the cloud, which, as it turns out, is not an easy engineering task. But we have done exactly that. So you've seen some of these things. We've released things like Studio, things like improving our scripting environment, source control integration with Git, and Service Portal. all so that you can build great user experiences for your end users with modern web technologies, all in the cloud. Now, these are all solutions to challenges that we can't really claim were our ideas. These are things that you told us that we needed to do. And recently, you've told us about a few new challenges. So let's talk about those now. The first one is around user confusion. When your users get confused, they get stuck. The second is around testing. So no matter what platform you're building on, testing is something that you have to do. And it's something that just doesn't have a lot of great options today. And finally, I don't care who you are out there, you don't write perfect code, and so troubleshooting is something that you have to do. And we think that we've made it a lot better. So let's talk about what we've done. Let's start with user confusion. So what we're not saying is that your users are unintelligent. What we're saying is sometimes they do get stuck. And when they get stuck, a lot of times you get questions that interrupts the work that you're trying to do. And in the worst case, it means that they give up. And when they give up, your applications don't get adopted. We think that we can help with that. And that's why we built something called guided tours. This is something that's new. This is going to allow you to really easily build integrated assistance right into your applications. We think it's going to be just so great for you. And Pat mentioned that we were building this application for lab management, and we made a bunch of changes to it, changes that are kind of just about ready to go. One of the changes that we made was to the UI, which is a perfect opportunity for us to show you exactly how you would build one of these guided tours into your application. So, Jerry, can you show us exactly what this looks like?
Absolutely. So we're going to start out here in Studio. And what we're going to do is show you one of the tours that we started building a bit earlier. And we're going to go ahead and add a couple of hints for our users, show you how easy that is. So we're going to go ahead and open up our guided tour here. It's going to open a new tab. And here we have our brand new guided tour designer. There's a brand new drag and drop user interface that makes it incredibly simple for building these tours without writing any code whatsoever. So you'll notice in the upper right-hand corner there, there's another submit button. Yes, there are 2 submit buttons. It was not my idea. Nonetheless, we need to make sure that the users aren't confused.
Perfectly good reasons.
So once our users are ready to submit their labs for approval, that's the button they're going to use. So we're going to make it easy for them. Just drag and drop that hint and let them know that this is the final submit button that they need to use. Just bear with me while I type this out. And we'll just click Save. And that's it. We've added a brand new step to our tour. It's that simple. So now that we've got that step added, I want to show you what this looks like for your end users. Mm-hmm. So right here from this user interface, we can just hit play, lower right-hand corner there. And here's our form. And as soon as we open it up, we've got this great new hint. And these hints aren't just static content. In this case, it's actually going to guide me through the specific process I need to use to fill out this form. So as soon as I fill in this field here, that hint is just going to automatically advance to the next step. All right, these are great hints to take your user through the exact journey they need to go through. No worries about confusion at all. So I'm just going to click through some of these steps we had in place and show you the one that we just added. And there it is. There's a hint right over that additional submit button. And no worries about our users being lost or how to finish with our application.
Very cool. So we really think that this is going to let you just provide a better user experience for your end users, because now you can integrate that assistance right into where they're at, get rid of some of that confusion so you don't get interrupted, and just accelerate the adoption of your applications. Now, Okay, so we made some UI changes to this, and we added this, but I happen to know that those weren't the only changes that we made, right? So what other changes did we make to this application?
So we changed the UI, we added that button, and I also made some changes to a few of our scripted REST APIs. A couple of these fields are automatically populated, but I got to be honest, I didn't have a lot of time to test them backstage, so.
Okay, I can't say that I'm surprised. And that's because testing is cumbersome, right? What are your options today? You can do it manually. Takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money. Or you can get a third-party tool, right? A lot of those, though, are fundamentally tied to the UI, which means that on upgrade, what happens? They break. So you're spending more time validating your tests than you are building new features. And that's why we built our automated test framework, so that you can build tests to get rid of some of that, right? So this is exactly what it sounds like. You can create end-to-end tests of your applications and their business process. It also comes with something called a test runner. Now, the test runner is something that runs in a browser, simulating how a user would use your application, so that you can do multi-browser testing simultaneously and understand, do I have a problem in Chrome but not in Safari? And really, really understand exactly what's going to happen. And so also, for those of you writing APIs, which I know a lot of you are writing APIs, you can also test your APIs now with this. So test all of your scripted REST APIs. And you can do this without writing any code. And the best part about all of this is, unlike some of those third-party tools, this is 100% upgrade safe. So I think we've got some tests, right, written for this. So can you show us exactly what this looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're just going to pull up our Cloud Lab Management Test Suite. This is the test suite that we put together for our application, test all of its functionality. And running this suite is incredibly simple. We're just going to click this big obvious button in the right-hand corner there. And now we've got to pick our browser, right? This is the test runner that Jonathan mentioned. We can choose from Chrome or Safari. These are separately connected test runners. Or we can run this directly in our browser right here in this user session. So we're going to run this test suite. And what we've done here is launched a new test runner, and it's going to execute right here in my browser. And you'll notice the user interface start to pop into that window down below. That is the automated test framework running through each of those steps automatically, executing our tests with no interaction from me, right? Just kind of doing what it does. OK, it looks like all of our tests are run. So we're just going to flip over and take a look at those results. And I got some bad news. We got a failure.
Yeah, it's not surprising. But the thing is, we've got a failure, but look what we just did, right? One click, a few seconds later, we know that we have a problem, and we shouldn't push to production. So not a single end user was impacted, which is pretty dang cool.
That is cool. Nobody was impacted, but we do still need to kind of figure out what's going on here. So let's dig in a little bit deeper. I'm going to open up the aging report. Now, this is a report that shows us the test results over time. And this is especially convenient because not only can you run these test suites manually, but you can schedule them at regular intervals, whatever you determine is necessary for your business or your product. Now, left-hand column there with the red, that was our most recent test failure. So given that it was passing recently, I suspect I probably broke something with those changes backstage. But let's make sure. So we'll open up that specific test failure. And this gives us all of the information about what failed there. If we scroll down, we can actually see each of the steps of that test with a description as well as the status. Now, at the bottom, I don't know, it's a little bit hard to see, but at the bottom there, we have a failure when we were trying to submit our form. So we could go and try to reproduce this and see what that failure was. Or we can just scroll back up to the top and open a screen capture. That's a screen capture at the moment that that test failed. And if you look closely, again, it's pretty small for you guys, but there's a field there that says number of student instances. It's got a value of undefined. I wrote this. That's actually that REST API I was mucking with. And it's not supposed to say undefined. It's supposed to be a number. So I'm pretty sure that's where we've got a problem. We're going to have to look into this. What do you think? Should we do this live on stage?
You know what? I wouldn't normally say that we should do this live because we know that troubleshooting has kind of been difficult. But I happen to know that we've got some new capabilities that can help with this. They are so simple. All you use is gs.print to show the value of your variable. And folks, you can do this as many times as you need. Okay, obviously this is not what we did. What we did build, though, is our new script debugger. And Jerry, can we see exactly what this thing looks like?
I would love to show it. So we're back in Studio, and I've opened up our script address API, and we need to go ahead and start debugging this thing. But how are we going to get started? How to get this thing rolling? Well, you start this just like you would expect, with a breakpoint. Anywhere you see a server-side script, you can now set a breakpoint to initiate a debugging session. So we need to execute that code again. We're just going to go ahead and run that test. Oops. And we'll switch over to our brand new script debugger. Now, this is a brand new user interface. In the upper left-hand corner there, it's got all of the information you would expect from a debugger. It's got our stack trace. Now, in the bottom left-hand corner, that's all of our transaction details. This is really powerful information for building on the ServiceNow platform. It's got the URL, request parameters. It even gives us information about the number of queries that have been executed. Right? So this is, like I said, incredibly powerful information for both debugging and optimizing the applications that you're building on the platform. And in the middle there, that's our script currently paused. And on the right-hand side, we've got all of our variables, both our local variables and our global variables.
OK, so we just threw a debugger up on the screen, which I get can be pretty intense, maybe for some people in the audience. This is a dev conference, but I do see some marketing folks in the room. So I'm just going to try to make this a little bit simple for just a second, right? So what we're trying to do is just observe the value of those variables on the right-hand side as the script executes so we can understand exactly what's going on.
Right. So we'll go and step through this script here. And you'll notice on the right-hand side, those are our variables filling in. Much, much easier than sprinkling gs.print throughout your code.
Clearly.
And so I think something might be wrong in this particular function, so we're just going to step into that real quick. And man, I'm kind of embarrassed, Jonathan. I see what the issue is right now. Do you see it by chance?
Let me look.
It's pretty small.
Oh, yeah.
There.
Is it the giant to-do that you left in there?
So if you can't read that, it says to do, uncomment before shipping. And I think that's what was going wrong. I know I'm not the only one who's left it to do in their program for longer than they intended. But it'll take me just a second to take care of this, fortunately.
OK, I'll buy you some time. So let's talk about what this means, right? Now when you're building and when you're debugging applications on ServiceNow, your feedback loop just got much, much, much faster. You get to observe things while they're happening instead of trying to find out after the fact. And you can do this on any server-side script, be it scoped or unscoped. There's no limit to the number of developers that can be doing this at any one time on an instance, which is not something that can be said for some other platforms out there. And we just think that this is going to make your life so much easier when troubleshooting. So did I talk long enough for you to fix it?
I've been waiting over here.
OK, great.
OK, so our script's taken care of. I think now we just need to go ahead and run our test suite real quick, make sure that everything's sorted. It's automated, it's fast, so it shouldn't take us too long. Let's see here. OK, cross your fingers. It's fast, but it's not magic. Sorry. All right, that's it. Our tests have finished running. We have everything passed, no red. I think we're good to go.
Right on. Very cool. Yeah, thank you. So what you've seen here is we continue to build for you. And with some of these new tools, with things like guided tours, you can deal with less questions, get better adoption of your applications, automated testing. You can consume upgrades of ServiceNow more quickly and do releases of your applications more quickly. And with this script debugger, you'll be able to spend less time debugging and more time building. We are absolutely committed to building a platform for you developers out there that you'll love and that you can use to build business applications at light speed. Thank you so much.
You know, I said this last year, but I'll repeat it. It is hard to talk about development tools on stage. You know, they're inherently things where you stare at a monitor and you click a lot. So I wanted to thank Jerry and Jonathan for making a good show of that. I want to say, though, that in addition to my kind of engineering hat, I also have a cloud operations hat. I actually run our data centers. And as the guy who runs the data centers, when you tell me that we've deployed 45,000 lab instances to support the labs, like we did, I have a few questions, like, are people really using them? What are they doing with them? Are some of them busy, some of them not too busy? Do we really need 45,000? Maybe 42 would have done it. So I immediately looked at this app and I said, you know, we really need to track some metrics from all these instances. They shouldn't just be floating around doing things. They should be floating around doing things and telling me what they're doing. It's a fairly classic IoT case. So I'm actually going to bring up a couple of my friends, Joe Davis and Mike Lentz, to show you how they added that functionality to that application on top of metric base. So come on up, guys. Oh, we're doing high five.
High five. Good morning. Thanks, Pat. Good morning, everyone. We're glad you're here. It's day 3. You survived, which is good. As Pat mentioned, I'm Mike, by the way. Sorry, that's Joe, so we know. As Pat mentioned, you know, the Internet of Things and big data. I think we're all familiar with these buzzwords. But if we take a moment and we peel back the hype on these industry trends, what we find as their common foundation is something really important called time series. The reason Joe and I are here this morning is that we've developed a new big data platform technology that solves for time series. So over the next few minutes, we're going to talk about 3 things. First, what is time series data and why is it so important? Second, we're going to talk about how we solve for time series data on the ServiceNow platform. And third, and probably most important, is how can you use time series data for your business to make good business decisions? So let's take a look.
All right, so the first thing that we wanted to talk about was kind of the relationship between IoT and time series. You know, we solved, it's a really abstract concept. We solved a really big part of it, so we want to kind of show you what that looks like. IoT in a nutshell, I think we're all pretty familiar with, in this room at least, right? You take a device, you take a machine, some sensor, and you hook it up to the internet. When you do that, it starts sending data continuously. We all know some examples of this. You know, we have servers sending CPU and memory. You have your IoT device, your smart thermostat. It might be like average temperature, power consumption. You have things like IoT industrial machines, like wind turbines. They're going to be doing things like blade speed and kilowatts per hour. Time series is tracking all of these metrics over time. That's really what it's about. Now, IoT comes into play when you have lots of metrics. You want to track them very often, and you have a lot of devices. Think, 1 million, 10 million, 100 million. So IoT, it's created this explosion of time series data. Now, time series, it's not just about IT. It's used in every industry. In the utility space, you're going to use time series to do things like predicting equipment failures. I think Dave talked about this on the day 1 keynote. You're going to try to prevent a problem from ever happening. In the retail space, time series is really important. You're going to use it to do things like track seasonal spending and forecasting inventories. You got to make sure you have the right product, the right place, at the right time.
Yeah, that's right, Joe. In the healthcare industry, time series is used to measure patient wait times. And this enables hospitals to augment the staffing of their doctors and nurses to reduce that time. And in our world of IT and cloud infrastructure, we use time series to measure infrastructure resources. This allows us to predict the impacts of new products and services on things like infrastructure capacity and performance. No matter the industry or the application, time series data is used as a decision support system. Time series data is gold. And it's gold because it allows you to understand the past and then predict the future, enabling you to make business decisions off of information versus speculation. So now that we have this baseline understanding of like what is time series and why it's so important, Joe, let's talk about how we solve this within the ServiceNow platform.
So this was it's a really hard engineering challenge. We've already established you have these huge machine-generated data streams. And so, but you wanted a solution on the platform. You've asked us for this. Many application developers and customers have asked us for this. So we're really excited to announce a brand new product. We have a new product called Metric Base, and that's ServiceNow's IoT big data platform technology. And it allows you to write platform applications that can store and operate against time series data. It does three things really well, and so we want to kind of go under the covers a little bit and talk to you about what it does really well so that when you go to use it, you get the most out of the product. The first thing, it's pretty obvious. It has to handle large volumes of data very efficiently. Think of this as high throughput. Metric Base has high throughput. In real numbers, what we've been talking about and testing internally is 160,000 values a second. That turns out to be about 14 billion data points a day you can send to a single instance of Metric Base, and it can handle it no problem.
Now, just hold on a second. I know it's the morning after the big party. The lights are a little bit low, but I hope you guys caught that. That's billion with a capital B data points per day. We've truly engineered Metric Base to be enterprise scale.
So, it really wasn't viable to build an application on the platform that operated at scales of that magnitude. So we were really excited to solve that part of the problem, but obviously we didn't stop there. The second thing that we solved here was once we receive all this data, we had to make sure that we could efficiently store it. And you in the audience, you might not care about that part. Like, hey, that's our problem. You don't care. But it's actually kind of important for you as well, because if we can efficiently store all that data that we just received, we can do things like backups and restores and clones and queries and make those all fast. So that's what we did. We used a fraction of the disk space to store all of that data on disk.
Yeah, the last thing we wanted to do with Metric Base was simply invent yet another big data solution. And we had to address those operational problems that Joe just mentioned. So what we first did was use Metric Base on our internal big data stream. Now, we use this big data stream to collect metrics on every ServiceNow instance around the world. And needless to say, we collected a ton of data. And we were able to take a 35-node HBase cluster, shrink it down to one server, running under 40%. I got a little bit of my cloud back.
You're welcome. So the third thing that this technology, this product does really well is it's going to give you fast, ad hoc, real-time queries. So as soon as we receive data, you can query for it. That's obviously really important. It's not just about storing lots of data. You have to be able to quickly get access to it in really unique ways.
So Joe, I think we all know what a query is. I mean, every single one of us work on the ServiceNow platform. How do we think differently about a time series query?
Okay, so there's one thing that's really unique about a time series query, and it involves time. So a regular query, we're all pretty familiar with a task query, let's say, right? You do a query against task where the number is int123, for example. A time series query, what you really want to be able to say is, hey, give me the top 5 servers, for example, that have an average CPU greater than 90% in the last, say, 2 hours. You're looking for problematic servers. You have a CPU issue. And you really want to be able to do that all in one place. And before this product, you might have had to go to different places to kind of answer that question, but not anymore. What we did, which is really different than other things you're going to see out there is we baked time series right into the CMDB. And it's pretty obvious why we did that. Most of you in the audience have implemented CMDB, or you're planning on implementing the CMDB. When you think about what did you put in the CMDB, you put things like servers and infrastructure and applications and IoT devices and sensors. And we've already kind of talked about all of those things. They generate time series data. So it makes perfect sense for us to add metric base integrated into the CMDB so that you can take all those, the context, the data, the relationships that you have defined in the CMDB and immediately get value out of all the data that you're collecting from time series so that you can answer these questions all in one place. Now, in this model, really the CMDB, it's more than just infrastructure now. It's more than just current state. In this new model, we really look at the CMDB as being the database for the Internet of Things. You know, it's really the database of things.
Yeah. And we wanted metric-based to be a simple way to implement time series within ServiceNow. You know, we've taken the power of your CMDB and we've combined it with the power of time series. And we're really excited about how this product is going to transform your business. The next step is to apply time series to an application, our lab application. So we collected metrics like response time and transactions and user logins on all the lab instances for K17. So Joe, let's talk through how easy it is to implement time series on the ServiceNow platform.
So we're going to do some demos here now, and we're going to show you how easy it is to build a ServiceNow IoT app. And there's really 3 steps that you have to remember here, and they're all really easy, so pay attention. Don't blink. They're going to be very easy and very quick, actually. You're going to create a metric. We're going to show collecting data for the metric that we just created. And then we're going to show how to leverage that data to make a decision with the stuff that we just collected. So let's start by creating a metric, and let's see what that looks like.
Yeah, and a metric is simply a value that's collected and trended over time. So something like server CPU or response time.
OK, so let's go ahead and show the instance here. Now, this is the new metric screen. Okay, this is when you use metric base. This is what you're going to see when you go to create metrics. If you've created a table or a field, this is probably really familiar. The first thing that you're going to have to do is define a label. This is what the user interface is going to display when you add this to like a list view. You also have to give it a metric name. Think of this as a programmatic field name. This is what you're going to use if you're writing script, if you're using a REST API. This is how you store data and you retrieve data. There's some other options here. You have to choose the CMDB table name, and there's some other things you can do. But for our example, we're going to go ahead and take the defaults. You can change these for your use cases and your application. But for us, we're going to go ahead and finish creating this metric and submit that form.
So Joe, you created a metric by filling out 2 fields and clicking submit.
We did work really hard to make that really easy. I don't know that we could have made that any easier. So the second step is you have to collect data. This is really where the time series kicks in, right? So we just created a metric. We had the ability to store data now. So how do you get data up into the field that we just created? There's a couple different ways. If your data is behind a firewall, then you send it through the mid server. That one's pretty obvious. The second way is we have some REST APIs that you can call. Now, in the application that we're talking about here, this K17 lab management application, we just use the REST API. We collected 100 metrics every minute, and we did that across 45,000 instances.
Right.
And if you do the math, in a few days of knowledge, what you're going to see is that's 1.6 billion data points that we collected that we have access to, insight into these instances in terms of what's going on. And it's just ready to access.
Yeah, so we've collected billions of data points on all of these lab instances. And the next step is really to visualize it. Let's start visualizing all this data. So one of the metrics we collected on the lab instances was response time. So Joe, can we jump back into the instance and take a look at the response time metric and see what it shows us?
So let's go ahead and come into the list of lab instances in the CMDB. Again, metric base integrated with the CMDB, so you're generally going to access time series through the CMDB. And here we have a list of instances. I'm going to go ahead and select the very first lab. And what you see here is 200 instances, about 200 instances in every lab. I want to point out we've already configured this list view to include the response time. And really, the response time, it's all about user experience, performance. How long does it take to load a page? We're probably pretty familiar with how important this metric is. It's a really important business metric. One thing I also want to point out there is you're seeing this time series in the list view. It's a single value. For those of you in the audience, you might be kind of wondering, well, I thought time series was a bunch of values that, you can configure these in the list view to show the last value, the max, the min. It's really up to you. Just at least get some data there. We've chosen the last in this case, but let's go ahead and take a look at what the actual time series data is that we've collected. What you're seeing here is for every instance in that lab, the response time over the duration of the lab.
Now, this is a really pretty chart. It's got lots of colors. We can kind of see when the lab started and when the lab ended, but it really doesn't tell us anything. Joe, let's dig in a little bit more.
You can do some really powerful things with time series. You can do things like take the average across all of the different series that you have. And what you're really seeing here is for that lab that we just looked at, for those 200 different series, here's the average response time. Here's the average user experience for this particular lab.
Yeah, so this is starting to show us a little bit more information out of all this data we collected. But as I said at the beginning of our conversation, the power of time series really comes into making a business decision. So for us, we have 2 hosting providers for all the lab instances at K17. Joe, let's compare performance between the 2 providers, and ultimately I want to decide which provider I'm going to go with for K18.
All right, so what you want to see is between provider 1 and provider 2, who's faster, who has a better response time. It's really easy for us to answer that. It's really easy for us to answer that because we have the list of instances in the CMDB. And one of the attributes that we have on those instances is hosting provider. And so we have some associated with provider 1 and some associated with provider 2. And we obviously collected response time as we talked about. So first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and group the instances by the 2 hosting providers that we have.
Provider 1, provider 2, that looks good.
From there, it's really easy to get the answer that we're looking for, which is asking metric-based to give us an aggregate average response time across those 2 different groups. Now, what you're seeing here is provider 1 is the blue line, and it's below provider 2. Now, remember, smaller is better for response time. It's a little bit like golf. And so provider 1 is faster for this use case than provider 2.
Right. So metric base allows me to understand and quickly see that provider 1 has about 25% better response time than provider 2. My business decision is very simple. Next year at K18, we're going with provider 1.
The data makes it pretty clear.
You have time series data throughout your organization. And remember, that data is gold. It allows you to understand the past and then predict the future. Metric base makes it very simple to create, implement, and manage time series within ServiceNow with 0 code. And this is going to enable you to make business decisions with information.
Thank you.
I've done and we've done a lot of projects at ServiceNow, and some of them are kind of more business focused, some are more what I call kind of classical engineering work. This one was really a lot of really close to the metal engineering to make this work, so I'm really proud of a team that put this together, and we're super excited about letting you get access to it. Talking a little more about this lab instance, though, if you think about it, it's a little dated. I mean, we're asking you which labs you want to take. That's kind of last year. Shouldn't we be able to predict the labs that you might want to take? Maybe based on labs you took this year, labs you took last year, your job title. It seems like we ought to be able to be a little bit smarter in terms of this app. So we're going to show you how to do that. We're going to show you how to add some machine learning to this application you just saw. So let me bring up Alan Leinwand and Carl Vanderpool to show you how to add some machine learning. Come on up, guys.
All right, welcome. So, very exciting topic, machine learning. I'm Carl.
I'm Alan.
There we go.
Process Illumination.
Machine learning, you've heard a lot about it during this conference, so we're going to show you what we've built, and let's just dive right into it. There are 3 things that we want to talk about. First of all, we want to talk about what we believe is machine learning. So let's put a little context on it, because everything is called machine learning nowadays. It's the big marketing word. So what do we mean with it? Second of all, we're going to talk about what we've built in the platform. And that's the result of the DX Continuum acquisition that we did 6 months ago. And then lastly, as Pat already pointed out, we are going to build a Netflix-like recommendation app or an Amazon-like recommendation app, but now to pick knowledge labs. So with that, let's get started. So let's shed a little light on what we believe and how we look at machine learning. And I already said machine learning is a field full of buzzwords, and Joe and Mike already talked about IoT and big data. And for those of you who are a little bit familiar with Gartner Group, Gartner typically talks about the hype curve. And the hype curve has a slope of disillusionment and then eventually a plateau of productivity. And it's our job when we start researching all these technologies to figure out which ones of these technologies are still on the slope of disillusionment and which ones are ready for enterprise applications, and we want to bake them into the platform when we draw that conclusion. So Alan, do you want to shed a little light on all these buzzwords out here and put some context? What are we going to do and what have we done?
Sure. Now, machine learning, as you said, is full of lots of terms, and we've been talking about it for the last few days. And I hate to break it to Pat, but I really don't want Skynet to be around, because that means you're all Terminators. But that's not machine learning in my mind. What we want to do is we want to be able to think about how can we be most useful to bring machine learning to our platform. And in doing so, we want to build something called supervised machine learning. And what supervised machine learning means, in a little bit of detail, is you specify input, you specify tables of information. That tables of information guides the machine using what's called training data. And then based upon that training data, you build a predictive model. And you take that predictive model and then you put it back into your instance. And then once you put it back into your instance, you're going to actually be able to use that data via an API call. So we're really trying to have a data-driven behavior for machine learning. Not doing cars. We're not doing chess. We didn't want to name it after a dead genius because we wanted to be relevant. We wanted to make sure that what we're doing here is something that is very pragmatic, because that's what we do here at ServiceNow.
So supervised machine learning, right? It really starts with data, and that's the cool thing, because you guys have been building apps, and you've been running apps on the platform at ServiceNow. So you have tons of data. But leveraging that data is pretty complex. And I know some of you have already tried to do this and have been experimenting, just like us, with machine learning technologies. And what do you need to do if it's not in a platform?
Yeah, well, a lot of you have been starting to play with machine learning, as Carl's been saying, and it really involves doing a lot of different things. You have to take terabytes of data out of your instance, perhaps. You have to stand up servers and get around a data center and have some fun racking and stacking. You have to install machine learning software. You need to perhaps find some data scientists that you can hire and actually do all this for you. But we didn't want to have to make you do all that on ServiceNow. We want to take the complexity out. We want to make it very timely in order to get it done. And we want to make sure that you can do it at a cost-effective way. We want to make machine learning simple, because what we want you to do is build really smart, amazing applications.
Machine learning, simple, right? That's what we're all about. So let's talk a little bit about machine learning on the platform. And as you know, the thing that we are really proud of is our multi-instance architecture. So we don't intermingle data from customers, which is very important for the CISOs and your bosses, et cetera. And you're probably thinking like, yeah, but I really don't care. I just want to get my data and how you store it. But in the case of machine learning, you should care, because in this single instance that you have where your data is stored, that's where we now also put the machine learning capabilities. So we do not apply machine learning on the aggregate of all our data centers, on all the data of all of you. We apply it on the data that sits in your instance. And why should you care? Because that allows that the predictions that we train of your data will be much more accurate and applicable for your business. So that's a really important point. So
I care, Carl, in case you're wondering.
You care.
I care.
You care about a lot. So earlier this week, we announced the Service Intelligent Automation Engine, and I just put a picture up here from our family portrait. So if you go on our website, you'll probably see this in the next coming days. Maybe it's already there. They probably updated the website. I just wanted to point out on that family portrait what it is that we're going to see and what it is that we're going to talk about. So there are a couple of things. We talked about performance forecasting earlier. That's all about performance analytics. You heard about benchmarking this week. You heard about anomaly detection. But what we're now talking about is really predictive modeling. That came with the DX Continuum acquisition about 6 months ago, and that's what we've been replatforming. So enough talk. I think we're ready for some action.
I guess I'm the action man. All right, so we're going to talk about the machine learning demo. Let me show you what I'm going to show you here. We're going to show you how we're going to select historic data by using features in the platform. We're going to produce a recommendation model, and we're going to apply it to an app, and we're going to build an app that really shows you how to make recommendations for the labs you all are going to take next year at K18. So you see what happens here is we're going to pull that data out of the instance. We're going to put it into our centralized training service. That centralized training service stores your data in order to grind through and produce a predictive model. But once it's done grinding through and producing that predictive model, at that point, that data is wiped off the central service. So again, we maintain that multi-instance architecture, so your data always lives within your instance, and we don't commingle that data. And then at the end of the day, we're going to take that, have that model built into your instance, and make a really cool, smart app. That's the goal.
All right. So step one is selecting historic data. Are you going to demo it right now?
Yeah, I'm going to walk over here and see if I can pull this off.
All right. I want to see it. Are you demoing?
Dude, personal space. All right, thanks.
All right.
That screen's not big enough for you? So I'm going to start typing here on the label.
Am I far enough for you?
A little farther.
A little far, OK.
Thanks. I'm going to go ahead and pick a field that we're going to be able to choose on. So I've picked the table that we're going to pick. I'm going to go off and now choose some fields that we're going to be able to create off this. And we're going to say we're going to look at all the information that you've created for the last 12 months. We're going to then figure out what input we actually need on this particular field. We're going to look at class type, class description, user ID, and have that selected as the input into our recommendation engine. On the output of it is we want to find the name of the class that you're going to be taking next year at Knowledge18. And then, there's this thing called the confidence interval. What frustrates a lot of people most about machine learning or things when you interact with machines is they guess wrong, and they just do things wrong. So we want to be able to have things guessed right. So we're going to set a confidence interval of what we call 95%. So I want this to be 95% accurate. But there's another group of people, executives, that actually we want to have it a little more confident. So let me type in some information here and say that executives, we want it to be 99% confident in terms of what they've done. So basic ServiceNow form, filled out the table we want to use, the input fields we want to train on, the confidence interval we want to generate for our model, and I hit submit. And just like that, we've now started to make machine learning easy for you.
So let me get this straight. So we had the you selected the data that went to the training service.
That's right.
Now the training service. And then, so now it's producing a model. It's crunching through all that data.
It's crunching through it right now, I hope.
All right. So how long does that take? Can we take a look?
Let's take a look. So if I come back over here, to be honest, the data set in the world of machine learning and big data and billions of data points, labs you've all taken at Knowledge17 for the past year and things you've registered for isn't that big of a data set. So if everything went well, I'll be able to click in here, kind of scroll down, and see for this particular data set, it's now 100% complete. So we've now produced that model and put it back in the instance already.
All right. So what is happening here is what used to be very complex with clusters of machine and extract the data, build a model, put it back in. That's just like a simple form. It actually looks pretty simple. And are we now ready to start using that model? And
Yeah, as we've been talking about throughout the day, we've actually gone ahead and built this application. So if I go up here and have it loaded in my second tab here, you'll see this is the application you're all going to see for Knowledge18. This is the tool that will allow you to register for labs and actually be part of the experience next year. And what you'll see on this screen right over here for my little login is that we've actually picked labs for you. This is the Netflix, Amazon recommendation engine. And I think one that I want to apply for here is the industry analyst. It's kind of important with my role to go off and talk to analysts. So I'm going to click into that, and you'll see I'm immediately able to register for that lab. No scrolling, no picking, no searching, just boom. Based upon the recommendation that's in the instance, I can have that recommendation presented to me directly. So what we've seen now is we've seen how we can use machine learning and use machine learning within the instance in a very easy-to-use way, just like you've seen normal ServiceNow applications. It's right into the platform. But what I want to ask you is, what are you going to do in the platform? What are the things that you're going to do to make the platform yours? Are you going to build recommendations in your environment? Are you going to be categorizing and routing work using this capability? Are you going to be doing things like we showed yesterday in the world of customer service or human resources or IT help desks to help those agents get recommendations, categorize and prioritize work, maybe surface knowledge-based information? What are you going to do with this capability that's going to be right there in the platform without you having to go off and learn an entire new discipline outside of ServiceNow? That's my challenge to you. Next year when we're up here, we're going to be demoing your app.
Exactly. So let me summarize that and capture it. This is really technology that is ready for prime time, and that's why we moved, and that's why we replatformed it. This is also the way to increase the productivity. All of you have to do more with less, or with the same amount of people. And all of you have tons of data, right, that you can now start monetizing. You can start learn from that data and start building those recommendations, those agent assists, and route your work faster and more efficient. And that will make sure that you'll improve your average time to response, that your pickup times will go up, and that workflow gets executed seamlessly. And lastly, we really want you to start building smarter apps. So like Alan said, next year at the CreatorCon Challenge, we hope to see lots of smart apps. And with that, I want to thank you all and call Pat back on stage. Pat?
Good job, my friend. Good job, man.
There's a sort of unusual thing companies get where they start thinking that they have like a way. And there's maybe some good things about that, maybe some good things about bad things about it. But if you're looking at ServiceNow and you're trying to figure out what the ServiceNow way is, I always thought it was about simplifying things, about making things more accessible to people, and in doing that, making them more useful. And that's really the tack we've taken with both metric base and with the machine learning. These are technologies that are out there, but they're really complicated. By simplifying them and making them part of the platform, we want to make them super accessible to people on the platform, people like you. We really showed you 3 things here, though. I want to summarize a little bit. We did show you how to build apps faster on the platform. And I have to say, I have wanted that debugger since I joined ServiceNow. It is actually really hard to build one of those. So it wasn't so much that we were unaware of the problem, it's just hard. So the guys who built it finally had a bit of an epiphany. I'm pretty proud of them. We also showed you metric base. This is a fundamentally new feature of the platform to let you do things you haven't been able to do before. And I'm excited about it because a lot of our internal apps want to use it. But the key thing to remember is it's also for you. This is not just designed for ServiceNow to build on top of. It's designed for you to build on top of. It's a platform service. So it's about the apps you can build on top of it that's got me really excited. And then finally, I want to mention our machine learning service. The same thing applies. You saw some use cases in the earlier keynotes about ServiceNow apps using this functionality. The key thing to recognize here at CreatorCon is it's also there for you. If you've got a data set with interesting relationships in it, you can train a machine learning algorithm on it and use it in your applications. It's a platform service available to you. And this is a keynote. It's not a keynote without a little bit of a call to action. So I got a couple things I got to ask of you. One is, please do check out the new tools. We've got the developer program, shameless plug. Soon as Jakarta comes out, and it should be out very soon now, go ahead and get a hold of a new Jakarta instance. Use the debugger. Tell us if you like it. Use the ATF. Build some guided tours. And then hopefully get your production instances upgraded so you can benefit from it. Those tools are there, and I want you guys to get the benefits. Second, and most obviously, let's build some great apps. I am super excited by some of the stuff I've seen from you guys over the last year. I want to be even more excited next year, and I think you do as well. The third part's a little more, subtle, but we have got, I got to check my slides. I'm always afraid I'll get too far ahead of myself. You look around you. It's a community. It's not just about technology. I started with people, and I want to recognize the people in this room. Make some relationships. Keep in touch after the show, online, face-to-face, whatever the case may be. Part of the reason we do this is we want to show you cool new product. That's just reality of it. Part of the reason we do this, though, is we want to show you some cool new people, hopefully in this room here. So please, get engaged. And if you want some help on that front, if you want to do a snug, a user conference in your area, reach out to us. We do want to help on that. We want to help you build a community around this. And this is normally the part, this is normally the part of the show where I would kind of clap my hands together and tell you, go forth, do something different. But don't do that yet. We've got something a little bit different for this one. We have added a section to CreatorCon, and this is called the CreatorCon Challenge. And what we've got going on here is we have asked development teams from all over the world to write cool and interesting apps on top of a ServiceNow platform. And then they submitted them to us, and we picked 3 finalists to come here today to compete for some prizes. And we have actually some legendary judges. They told me I had to call them legendary, and I told them in back that made them orange, and nobody got the joke. But this audience got that joke. They're not actually orange. But it is a great show. Looks a little like Shark Tank. So with that said, I'm going to bring Alan Line1 back on. He's going to be the master of ceremony for this bit, and we'll bring on the CreatorCon Challenge. So Alan, why don't you come on up here with me? How you doing, dude? We're supposed to kill time.
Okay, we can kill time.
We should probably step forward.
All right. So we're supposed to kill time. So we're here to talk about the CreatorCon Challenge. Pat and I have been working on this for a better part of a year, and we're really excited to sort of be here and show everyone what's going on with the CreatorCon Challenge. We've shown you about building great apps. Now we're going to show you 3 really cool applications. And these 3 really cool applications are completely diverse. There's one in the IT world, there's one in the university and the education world, and there's one in the social good world. And these are people that have really worked really, really hard to get to this point. So the CreatorCon itself, let me talk to you a little bit about what that is. We had 125 companies actually join the CreatorCon Challenge, actually come and get the opportunity to pitch up here on stage. They came from 33 countries, 5 continents. We had 6 new startup companies formed specifically just to try and get up here. And we ended up with 9 shortlisted companies. And these 9 shortlisted companies all got passes to come to Knowledge, all got flights and airfare, and got treated nicely to get here. You can make this shortlist next year. I pretty much guarantee it. And then we ended up with the 3 finalists. Hey, it looks like we're ready.
What's that?
All set.
Okay. Just a word of warning. They had these chairs backstage. They're on gantries. 3 different people fell over trying to sit in them because they move. So
this will be fun.
Yeah, tell your judges to be careful.
All right. So we're going to bring out these Legends of Tech judges right about now. These 3 guys are just really amazing investors. They're amazing personalities. So let me bring out BJ Lackland, who is CEO of Lighter Capital, amazing venture investor. Let me bring out Om Malik, who you might know from GigaOM, New Yorker, and some other areas. And let me bring out David Webb. David was CIO of Silicon Valley Bank, entrenched into Silicon Valley, and now he's CIO of Equifax. So thank you guys for coming and being here. Just really excited to have you here. I always want to give an honorable mention out to the short list. These are the 9 companies. They're here somewhere in the audience, right? Aren't you guys somewhere? Someone raise your hand. But these are the folks that actually got here to Knowledge. There they are up here. Thank you all for coming. Amazing set of companies. But I really want to keep this punchy and keep it going because, man, I don't know about you guys, but I'm nervous. I don't know if you guys know, but we're giving away $500,000 in about 10 minutes. That's a lot of cash. It's going to be an investment from ServiceNow Ventures of over $500,000, $325,000 in additional marketing money. You add that up, that's, you round up, it's $1 million, right? So we're going to have some fun here. It's not my money, so I get to give it away. So let's talk about the finalists. Well, actually, these guys get to give it away, actually. So our finalists. Why don't we have the finalists come on out? Team Clear Sky. Team Factor 5. Team Helpful. Come on out, guys. Now, you all are involved in this. We want to make sure that you're involved in this, so you're actually going to get a vote. The audience is going to get a vote. We're going to do a American Idol type of thing. And the way you're going to do this is you're going to text in. So you're going to text in A, and I'll repeat this later. This isn't a test. You don't have to type it in now. But type in A for Clear Sky, and they're about to pitch in front of you. Type in B for Factor 5 to 22333. And then type in C for Helpful. So I'm going to repeat this again when they're all done. But just keep in mind, get your phones out, because we're going to do a really quick text poll. And while the judges are conferring to pick the winner, to hand all those cash and prizes out, you guys are going to be texting in. So I want you to really participate and have some fun with this. Are you ready? We've been working on this for about a year. You guys set? 5 minutes on the clock. All right. That worked. All right. Team Clear Sky, I'm going to hand you the clicker. It's your time on stage, guys. Here you go.
So my name is TJ.
And I'm Joe. And along with our partner Bond, we're Clear Sky. We built security applications on the ServiceNow platform. We were compelled to help companies improve security because of the rise in data breaches. In 2016 alone, it was a $22 billion problem. And that hurts. Why? Because many of these breaches were due to simple mistakes. Mistakes like undocumented system access or granting someone too much access. And timing compounds that problem, as many of those mistakes took months, even years to find. To the IT leaders, to the risk leaders of the world, this is a huge headache. And we walked miles in those shoes. As information security professionals, we felt the pain of keeping up with the mountain of threats. And that's why we created Identity Lifecycle Management, or ILM for short.
ILM will integrate with your existing identity providers. It will enforce approvals, track ownership, automate access requests and reviews, all the while providing audit evidence. And we've made it easy for our customers. First, you can download it from the App Store. We configure your identity provider, and we import all your groups and accounts and classify them. Lastly, a system administrator can set up approvals, responsible group, review cycle, and offboarding action without ever having to reach out to a developer. Once the environment's set up, users can go to a single portal in your ServiceNow instance, request access across the entire organization. Approvals can happen through email, and access is granted automatically. And that's just the beginning. Because this is part of the ServiceNow platform, if you need to create an account during your vendor onboarding process, you can do that. If you need to see how you compare against compliance frameworks like ISO, PCI, or HIPAA, that works too. If you wanted to create your own workflows to give access and then take it back within a day, you can do that also. And you have visibility to all your access requests across your entire organization, whether it's from an operation perspective, like who's being onboarded or offboarded, or if you want to see what type of access requests are being granted, you can. If you're looking from a compliance perspective, you can see what accounts are inactive, or do you have admin accounts that the password doesn't reset on? You can check to see ownership. All that's available. And lastly, we do scheduled reviews, and those reviews are actionable, which means that your reviewers can actually remove application access in real time and reduce risk.
The serviceable market for ILM is estimated to be over $2 billion. And as we add new security products to the portfolio, those numbers will grow. And we're the right team for the job. We've been developing on the platform since 2009. We have diverse backgrounds in engineering, development, and information security. We come with a proven track record in that we won Innovation of the Year in 2012, and as a customer, we built over 50 enterprise-class applications, saving millions of dollars. We're extremely passionate about ServiceNow. So come join Clear Sky and help us make the world a little more secure. Thank you.
All right. I only like you guys because you're from my hometown of San Francisco. But judges, questions for Clear Sky? Go for it.
After you. Let me go first, because I deal with a lot of the things you're dealing with on a daily basis. I think anybody who's in a large corporation has to deal with a lot of the issues you're addressing, which I think is commendable. There's a couple of questions I had. Really, it would be interesting to understand who you're selling your solutions to in the enterprise, and really, what is the value proposition that you're putting in front of them? Because most large corporations already have a plethora of solutions for different parts.
So I'll answer the first part of it. We're really going after anyone who is, or any enterprise that has regulatory requirements, so financial, healthcare, also technology companies, public companies, or any company that really has sensitive data that they want to maintain, secure access of. TJ, do you want to?
Absolutely. And a lot of the solutions in the market today definitely grant access. They provide single sign-on. They make it easy to get at that access. In the past life, I worked in help desk, and we would constantly get requests to grant access to applications, and we didn't know who to ask approval for, and a lot of the time those people were given access. Also, we only saw it on the front end, so once that access was granted, it was rarely taken away. So by automating the approvals, you ensure that you're reducing risk by always routing it to the correct person. And then doing the automation itself and providing that access, you're reducing the risk for human error also when it comes to granting the access and the right level of access.
But just to put a fine point, the value proposition is really the fact that we're on ServiceNow, we're native to ServiceNow. It opens up the world to integrating with all of the other applications on the platform. We can easily pass information to security operations, GRC, the HR module, vendor onboarding, customer service. And with other solutions that are not native to the platform, that would require an actual integration and effort. And it happens seamlessly with our solution.
Great. One more question from anybody?
As an investor, I love systems of record, right? And if you guys are doing a system of record, especially in a regulated environment, it's going to be incredibly sticky. Once you get a customer, you're going to keep them for a long time. The issue a lot of times with those businesses, though, is it's going to cost a lot of money to get the customer. I don't know if you guys have customers now already or not, but walk me through sort of the unit economics of acquiring the customer, how long it takes to pay back that acquisition cost, all that kind of good stuff.
Quickly.
Yep. So the cost to acquire a customer, we expect to be around $30,000 to $40,000. But the lifetime value of that customer, we expect to be in the several hundred thousands, 300 to 400, even more, once we start dealing with the larger enterprises. And we believe that we can get there within 6 to 12 months with what we have in the pipeline of active conversations with potential customers.
And we're also working with partners of other identity providers to provide this functionality to their user base. So an already existing market that may have identity solutions, we're expanding those capabilities and giving them what they need.
All right, guys. Thank you very much, judges. Thank you very much, Clear Sky. I'm going to get you next. Om and I go back away. He gave me a look, so, you go first, Om. All right, next up, our men from down under, Factor 5, coming up, 5 minutes. All yours.
Good morning, I'm Brian, this is John, my business partner, and we're for Factor 5. And this morning, we'd like you to imagine with us for a moment. We'd like you to imagine that you're an academic, and you've been recently appointed as the program director for the Bachelor of Computer Science at the University of Washington. Now, you've just come back from a conference and you're super excited, and you know what you've got to do is add a new major in artificial intelligence and machine learning to your program. You're super excited about this, and you go to your boss and you say, right, how do we get these changes through? After she tells you about the 4 or 5 committee approvals you'll need, she points you to a shared drive and says you'll find all the templates in there. And this is the beginning of your nightmare. You spend the next 9 months of your life filling out Word documents, emailing them around the organization, being told you need approval from one department, then being told you don't need that approval, but you do need it from another department, and on it goes.
Eventually, if you're persistent, you get your changes made. Now multiply that across hundreds of degrees and literally thousands of courses, and you see the size of the problem within just one university. Unfortunately, this is a reality for universities right across the globe.
And globally, universities are spending about $44 billion on IT today, and some estimates have that growing to as much as $67 billion by 2020. Can we roll the video, please? So we built CourseLoop to address a real market need, and that is digitizing and automating the curriculum management process. And we built it entirely on the ServiceNow platform. We leveraged the strong data management, collaboration, workflow, and integration capabilities really to give us an advantage over traditional vendors in this space. Now, our users, our customers, academics, they're a particularly finicky bunch. They've got better things to do with their time, and they'll tell you, than spend it on an application that restricts the way they want to work. And they've got absolutely zero tolerance for learning any new admin tools.
So with that in mind, we've had a really deep focus on user experience. We've worked very closely with our users to design and refine the user interface to keep it really simple and intuitive. And we've gotten a great reaction from the market. Last year, we signed our first client, Monash University, Australia's largest university, to a 3-year software and services contract. They're a fully referenceable client and have so far hosted 2 site reference visits from other universities. Earlier this year, we signed our second client, Murdoch. Murdoch have 50 homegrown applications around their student information system. And the exciting thing about this partnership is we've signed a Memorandum of Understanding, an MOU, to explore how future CourseLoop products can replace these homegrown applications. We're in the final stages of the procurement process with 2 other universities, and we expect to hear from them in the coming weeks.
How do we make money? The important part. Well, we price our applications on an annual subscription basis. And with our current product set, we believe we can reach about $400,000 a year on a per client average. And as we build out products in the portfolio, we believe that will push closer to $1.5 million. So we start in this curriculum management space, which is where we're playing today. And it's really the thin edge of the wedge. It's a springboard to move us into the traditional management space. We talked about systems of record. This is a system of record for your curriculum. Today, that's Excel. We think it should be CourseLoop. As we build out the product, and later this year, we'll start to build into student services and support, and then into the traditional domain of student information systems. We validated this in the Australian market. We've got really good traction with our clients there, as John talked about. We want to test it in the Asia market later this year and then look to move into the US market in 2018. In addition to the great technology that we get from ServiceNow, part of this partnership program allows us to access a great distribution channel through the store, through a global sales team. And we really believe that's a great opportunity and advantage for us. And we're in a sector that ServiceNow has identified as one of its key 4 strategic verticals. Now, John's not a nerd like me, so why us? He spent his whole career on the business side, really transforming the customer experience and embedding digital transformation in organizations like Nissan if you're American, Fisher & Paykel, and Qantas.
And Brian spent 25 years delivering large-scale software solutions for the US Air Force, the ANZ Banking Group, and most recently as CIO of one of Australia's largest universities, RMIT. Most importantly, Brian spent time in our customers' shoes. With the CreatorCon investment fund, we'll look to grow our product development team and develop our expansion plans for the Asia Pacific and US markets. And finally, we believe we have a compelling product in an attractive market. It's a market we understand deeply, where we've got great traction with our clients, and we're confident that we can scale this business in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. Oh, Malik.
Finally. What's your growth rate been so far over the last couple of years? And the second question is, how much customization you need to do to enter the two new markets you've been talking about?
Okay, good question. Growth, well, we sold our first product to Monash just a year ago. So we started in September 2015, and we've won our second client in February, I think it was, Murdoch. And we've got, as John said, 2 at the end of the selection stage, so they've done site references. Well, I was hoping to get the call before we actually got on stage today. So Australia's got about 30 universities, so I think we're doing pretty well in that market. They're bigger universities in that market. With respect to customization, the core problem is very much the same between the different markets. The regulatory environment and the reporting environment's a little bit different, and one of the advantages we see of using the ServiceNow platform is our ability to sort of be really flexible in that space. And sorry, Alan, our architecture, we've spent a lot of time getting the architecture right on top of ServiceNow in our application to allow for that kind of flexibility, not just across markets, but even just university to university.
We take it as a compliment that you can be flexible on our platform. It's all good. Other guys.
Just curious, real quickly, it's a very interesting business model, and you've chosen to focus on the universities and that vertical. Do you see applicability for the processes you've developed in other verticals?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've deliberately focused quite narrowly and within education to higher education. You look downstream to secondary, there's opportunity. I think as you see more and more corporate development happening, I think there's a lot of adjacency. And the more capital we have and the more ability we have to move into markets, the better I think we'll be placed to do that.
One more question. So if you guys are basically displacing Excel, right? I mean, you must be displacing more than that if someone's willing to pay $400K for it, right?
Yeah.
So how do you quantify the savings you're giving the customer when you're going in and doing a sales pitch for a $400K sale?
Yeah, it's a good question, and you're spot on. It's Excel, it's Access databases, it's homegrown SQL applications. It's a number of sort of alternative solutions in that space. So that's definitely one side of the sell. And there's definitely a cost element to it. There's a productivity savings. So if you look across the academic cohort, they're the expensive part of a university more than the admin side of the university. So we're saving productivity time for them so they can put it into research. And that's where the money is in universities. That's typically the way we qualify.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. An amazing application on our platform. Appreciate it. All right. 2 out of 3 to go. Almost ready to give away a lot of money. All right. Team from Helpful. 5 minutes on the clock. Wow. Didn't expect that. Take it away. Uh-oh. No microphone.
I have never been so lonely. Surrounded by so many people. That's what my mother told me a couple of years ago, referring to her paid caregivers. She was living in California at the time, getting older and starting to need more help. I was in Washington, D.C., actually working for AARP and leading part of their caregiving initiative and feeling pretty helpless that I was living so far away. I had a sister who lived closest to my mother, and she did what she could while also maintaining a very demanding full-time job. She was beyond stressed. Well, my family's not unique. There are 40 million other families in the United States who are struggling with the same problem. And yet what I know from my time with AARP is that what the marketplace still lacks is a solution that treats older adults like adults and that more families can afford. So I moved back to California and I started Helpful. My name's Jenny Gallagher, and together with Shamshad Khan, we're the co-founders of Helpful. Helpful's a marketplace that specializes in companionship, non-medical and non-personal care assistance. We provide the kind of help that older adults want and that their families need. Here's a look at our platform. So users come to our site, they sign up, they then select whether they want to get help or give help, and then build a platform. Older adults can then request help, and we match them with helpers based on compatible backgrounds, interests, preferences, and traits. And visits include assisting with practical tasks around the house or on the go, or even just enjoying activities together, like going to watch a sunset or sharing a home-cooked meal. Our platform combines artificial intelligence, machine learning, and matching algorithms so that we can make the best matches possible. And we're also leveraging crowdfunding and time exchange concepts so that family and friends no longer have to let time, distance, or money keep them from helping an older loved one. So how are we different from other alternatives out there, whether it's a Care.com or another company? It really comes down to engagement. First, we engage older adults with the parts of life that matter most to all of us, for them to be able to keep doing what they love, to be able to have choices, and for them to be able to spend time with people that they enjoy. And secondly, through the matching that we do and with our focus on companionship, we're able to create a very engaging experience for helpers. They enjoy visits, and they feel good about what they're doing, and they get paid. And then third, we provide family and friends, like myself when I was living in DC, a way to be able to engage in the solution even if they can't be there, by enabling them to be able to contribute to a loved one's helpful account. Well, we recently ran a pilot, and we're really excited by the outcome. What we learned was that older adults and helpers alike love helpful. Here's some sound bites of what we heard from them. One of our members said, "Having the freedom to go where I want to go after dark, it just gives me such joy, and I feel safe." And one of our helpers said, "I'd say the highlight today was seeing the smile on her face." Well, clearly, there's a big need. And at the same time, there's an enormous opportunity as this wave of baby boomers continues to age. We're focusing on people like my sister, the 24 million family caregivers who are overwhelmed and also are working. Our business model includes B2C and B2B. We charge a service fee for every visit, as well as a handling fee for contributions that are made to a loved one's helpful account. And we're also offering a group subscription option, such as the app that we're going to have in ServiceNow's store. Our go-to-market strategy is centered on building distribution partnerships with senior living facilities, healthcare providers, employers, long-term care insurance companies, and other companies that stand to benefit from Helpful's solution. We have a terrific team that's very qualified to make Helpful a success. Among the 9 team members, we have decades of experience with some of the largest and most successful affinity organizations in the world, AAA and AARP. We know about building strong customer relationships and enduring brands. And we also have a fantastic advisory team. We have Gail Aldrich, who's the former chair of AARP, and Reena Jadhav, who's a serial entrepreneur and the former CMO of Conduit. And we also have some fantastic partners, such as ServiceNow. Some of our partners have also collaborated with us on pilots, such as the El Dorado Senior Day Center and the Lake Merritt Independent Senior Living. And we're looking for more like-minded people to join us in this mission. So if you're interested in becoming a partner or an investor or a customer, we hope you'll come find Shamshad or myself after the competition. Thanks very much.
DJ, let's start with you.
So can you get AARP to go push it?
That's the plan when we get to that point, yeah.
Anybody else?
What's the customer acquisition strategy for you guys, apart from the AARP endorsement?
Right, so it's really through our go-to-market is with distribution partners. So, for instance, senior living, they have a big need. They can only sort of do so much. So by partnering with them, you know, it really facilitates our customer acquisition. And similarly with healthcare providers, we're in some conversations with them. They see this as a great opportunity to sort of help bend the trajectory of seniors' health, of helping them stay healthier, at home longer, as well as employers. And that's the app that we are going to be having in the App Store with ServiceNow, is they have really both sides of the equation. They're losing over $30 billion a year specifically around this issue, so we see an opportunity again to be able to have those types of partners.
And so who's paying for the service? Is it the person who needs the help, or their family is going to pay for it?
Yeah, it'll depend. It could be either. So, for instance, with the pilot we're running right now, it is the older adult. They're in an independent living facility, and so that they have signed up and they're paying for the visits themselves. We also plan to have sort of an admin function, so depending on the circumstances, you know, an adult son or daughter could also be the one who is sort of responsible for paying for the service.
Just real quick, you obviously completed a pilot. You learned something in that process. What course adjustments are you making to the business model coming out of the learnings?
Oh, that's a good question.
Well, I can say something
Okay,
about
yeah,
that.
please.
So we did find that there are some users who are not very good with the apps and the browsing. They still rely on phone and texting at the most. So we are also working on creating a client for interaction purposes, maybe a concierge to take the call, or there are other new technologies to actually start the conversation from the phone or the text messaging, and then the rest of the things are done on the same platform.
Are you relying upon the person who's being cared for actually interacting with the UI a lot, or is it their family member that's doing it, like on their behalf?
Yeah, so actually that was another interesting thing from the pilot. We were sort of surprised in terms of, of those that participated in the pilot, about 75% of them were either on web and or mobile, and 25% were mainly, phone-based. So I think that it will need to be both. And, those who are using mobile, for instance, Lyft, and those are the sorts of apps. So we realize that our mobile app needs to be simple, certainly for that, user, as well as obviously for the helpers and family members. So.
All right. So judges, thank you very much. You guys got what you need to make a decision? All right. Let's turn the judges' microphones off. You guys confer amongst yourselves. Tell me who you want to think about. Remember, we're giving away $500K in cash investment right here. We're giving $325,000 away in business development marketing expense. We're also having a showcase. I mean, if you think it's easy to stand up here and pitch a company you built over the past year, I dare you to try it next year. Be here, because these guys, I think, did an awesome job. So thank you very much to all of them. I realize I need the clicker. Thank you. Little logistical snafu there. Here's how to vote again. You're involved. I need you to vote. I need you to vote now for one of these three teams. Clear Sky, A. Factor 5, B. Helpful, C. There you go. Go ahead and vote for those. Take your time, but not too much time. And we're going to let the judges confer here for a little while. You guys got it? That was fast. Okay, let's give the audience a little bit more time to vote, since I didn't really think it was going to go that fast. Let me just realize what we have here on the ServiceNow platform. We've got an identity lifecycle application, very IT-centric. We've got Factor 5 for the university system. And we have Helpful, social good, really connecting people. Think about the diversity of these applications that you're voting for and the power of the platform that really allows you to do it. OK, so I think the votes might be in. So I am going to need some folks to give me the votes. Somebody's coming out here to give me the votes. Right? Just say yes. I can only dance for so long up here. Pat's going to walk out here and give me the votes. OK. Oh, there's the votes. I knew there was somebody coming out to give me an envelope. Perfect. That was like conflicting votes. So here we go. So let me see what we got here. Huh. The winner is, of course, La La Land. No. Here's what we got, guys. Here's what they got. So can we turn off my mic now? Great. All right, you're good. All right, we know who won. That was Fast and Furious. That movie didn't win either. I just made that up. All right, so our third place winner, who wins $100,000 in ServiceNow investment. I'd like to congratulate, making sure I got this right, guys. Flip the bottom two, right? OK. I'd like to congratulate the team from Helpful. Thank you very much. I forgot to introduce Dominic Phillips from ServiceNow Ventures is here to hand them the big check. So go ahead and give them a big check. Why don't you guys hold that for a little while? Now, Dom, go get me 2 more checks. So Dom's going to go back and get 2 more checks. You guys nervous? Tell me when you're ready, Dom. Dom's got 2 more checks. All right, here we go. Now, this is the fun part because I get to announce the winner. Because, of course, if I announce second place, then, well, do the math. So, the winner of the first ever CreatorCon Challenge, winning $250,000 in ServiceNow investment, is our team from Down Under, Factor 5. Come on up, guys. And that means clear sky. That means Clear Sky wins second place. So I want to make sure that they're excited about it. Everyone gets a big check, big check. All right, so I also forgot about the confetti cannons. That freaked me out. Just want to say one more thing, and that is before you head out and do the labs today, click. Before I head out and do the labs today, come on over to CreatorCon next year. We can't wait to see you. We're going to be back in Las Vegas at the Venetian. See you at Knowledge18. Thanks for spending time with us. You don't know how much it means to us that you're all here. Thanks again. Have a great show.